In today's events, we actually included a portion of the program that was devoted to a look at Israel, along with prayer for Israel and its people as they respond to the October 7th terrorist attack by Hamas. Now, in addition to the reflection on the biblical significance of the red heifers, we looked at that. It was very interesting. In fact, if you get a chance, you can go back. We'll have it posted later. We also heard a report on the hostages held by Hamas for months now and how Christians can stand with the people of Israel. Join me now to give us the latest on the situation there in Israel is Ohad Tal. He is a member of the Israeli Knesset for the Religious Zionist Party, and he came today to be a part of the National Day of Prayer and Repentance. Welcome.
Thank you, Tony.
Ohad, good to have you with us. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming all the way from Israel and being a part of the prayer event today. You were there for the whole thing, and you actually shared about the situation with the hostages. And I guess we could just start right there. What is the status in terms of all of the individuals that were abducted? How many have returned home? How many are we still working? Because even in the news today, there's talk about a pause in the engagement in order to try to negotiate the release of more of these hostages.
Yeah, so first of all, we have to understand that on October 7th, something unbelievable happened in Israel. Something that it's really beyond imagination. I mean, Hamas fighters, but not only them, actually, because it was also Islamic Jihad, and random Gazans who came into Israel, penetrated into the kibbutzim, into the villages around Gaza, and basically butchered 1,200 Israelis, kids in their beds. They raped women. They beheaded babies. They slaughtered parents in front of their kids and took 240 of them into Gaza. I told one of the stories about the family called Yahalomi, about the father. His name is Ohad, just like my name. He was taken with his whole family, his wife Batsheva and their 3 kids, into Gaza. The wife, Batsheva, and 2 kids succeeded to escape because they took them on motorbikes. So the wife succeeded to escape, and she saw, I mean, she took 3 kids with her, but one of the terrorists didn't give up and took from her hands one of her kids into Gaza. Now just really try to imagine a mother that sees her husband and her son being taken away, brutally taken away from her to the unknown, to the terror nest of Gaza. So this is really, the atrocity that happened on that day is really unprecedented in human history. And currently there are 136 hostages still held in the hands of Hamas. I mean, we released some of them from the 240, but 136 are still there in the hands of Hamas until this moment. Among them, babies. I spoke about one of the babies who was kidnapped when he was only 9 months, and now he celebrated a year in captivity. I mean, these are things which really are beyond imagination.
Israel has said, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that the threat by Hamas must be eliminated. And of course, the international community, we're seeing last week the International Court speaking out saying that Israel must back off. You're getting that from just the 4 corners of the earth.
Right. The hypocrisy when everyone is dealing with Israel is just unbelievable. I mean, basically what the court is trying to say is that Israel doesn't have the basic right to defend itself. This is what they're saying.
Right.
Because, I mean, we didn't initiate anything with Hamas. Just to remind everyone, we withdrew from the Gaza Strip completely in 2005.
And then 2007, Hamas took over.
Exactly.
Self-governing.
Exactly.
So wait, I want to stop for that just a moment, because we're hearing now that one of the solutions here is a 2-state solution. I mean, isn't that essentially what we had there? I mean, they had operational control of Gaza.
You know, telling Hamas after the atrocities of October 7th that what they will get is a fully functioning state from the hands of America, basically, is telling them that the path of terror, this is the right path to go.
Right.
This is the right path because it's worth it. This is what we're telling them.
Right.
And I think it's a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake not just for Israel. It's a huge mistake for
the world.
For the world, exactly.
Because you do not reward that type of behavior.
Right.
First off, I mean, just the whole idea that a two-state solution would work. My point was, Gaza, essentially, they had control. That was their area.
Right.
But look what they've been spending.
Exactly.
You know, since 2007, they've been building these tunnels. They've been they've been developing this infrastructure for terrorism.
And we made mistakes about that because also in Israel, many people thought that, you know, if we will improve their economy, if we will allow Palestinians to come to Israel to work, to earn decent money, that will take away their desire to destroy us. That will create a better feeling that we are neighbors. But it didn't turn out.
Well, but the Great Society here in the United States taught us that. Now, there's certainly an argument to be made because there are parts of Israel. I don't know it as well as you do, but I've been there quite a few times. But over in areas in eastern Israel, also known as the West Bank, you have Israelis, you have Jews and Palestinians working and living together, and the Palestinians like the work that they have, but they're not infected with the terrorist ideology of Hamas like we've seen in Gaza. So it's really going to the head of the snake, which is this ideology being pushed forward by these terrorist groups.
So I must say a couple of things about what you've asked. First of all, just about the terminology. I reject the terminology calling it the West Bank because this is not the West Bank. It's Eastern
Israel.
It's Judea, it's Judea and Samaria. Exactly. This is the land of the Bible. This is Judea and Samaria. And the term that is being used as the West Bank is basically because it's much easier to explain why we can take away the Jews from the West Bank than to take the Jews from Judea. This is why some people are using this terminology, and I think it's important for everyone to go back to the roots and to use the right terminology, to call the land the way it is, the way the Bible is calling this piece of land, and this is Judea and Samaria.
Where Shiloh is right there in the heart of that, where the tabernacle was for 369 years.
Right. And about the fact that the Arabs of Judea and Samaria do not share the same ideology like Hamas, it turned out that that's another misconception because it was proven, even now, after the October 7 atrocities, massacre, and a poll that was made not by Israel, by a doctor of one of the universities of Judea and Samaria, of the Palestinian, Dr. Shkaki. And it turned out that about 80% of the people, of the Arabs of Judea and Samaria, today supporting and justifying the massacre of October 7th and supporting Hamas. About 80%. 80% is not something you can ignore.
Right.
It means that most of them supporting the terror, they believe that their way to go through is with terror, and we cannot give any cannot strengthen that.
Well, I mean, even today, our State Department reiterating its support for a two-state solution.
Yeah. Well, I believe that's a grave mistake, and I think it's a mistake that, if God forbid, the Israeli government will follow with this policy, that can have a bad impact about the entire world. Because again, in the Middle East, everything is very simple, very simple. I mean, we're not that sophisticated. If you're weak, we will come and bite you. This is how it goes. And if they see that the terror works, and it worked, I mean, and you have to remember, Yahya Sinwar succeeded to do something that all the Arab armies didn't succeed to do in 75 years. They tried, they didn't succeed. He did it in one day. And he will get a state at the end of it. It means it was worth it.
Yeah.
And radicalism, because of it, will raise its head all over the world. You can already see it begins in Europe. You can already see they're telling to the Christians in Europe, we want to apply Sharia rules here in your countries. You are our slaves. This is how they treat Christians in Europe today. This is what we want to see in America. This is what we want to see in the entire Western civilization, because this is what will happen.
Ohad, let me move to where things stand right now, because we're talking about Gaza, we're talking about as Israel moves to neutralize this threat by Hamas. And by the way, to complete candor here, I agree with you. I do not think a two-state solution works. First off, it's the land was, we believe as Christians, that this land was given to the Jews, and it's theirs. And the United States should not do anything to force them to give up any of that land. We think that's wrong, and we'll pay a price for that. Where are we operationally when it comes to Gaza? How much control does the IDF have over Gaza?
So first of all, we have to understand that the war in Gaza is very complicated, because it's not, Gaza it's not so small as people maybe tend to think. And it's not just what's above ground. We discovered, which, by the way, we didn't know how enormous that is, but we discovered that underground there's unbelievable amount of tunnels and facilities, which is really, again, beyond imagination. It's miles and miles, thousands of miles of tunnels that all made for terror. This is what they have there. And it's not so easy to get into these tunnels. And until now, we've destroyed about 20% of the tunnels. And from the 40,000 fighters Hamas and Islamic Jihad has, we only killed about 10,000, which means about a quarter. And this is after 4 months of fighting. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And it takes time. And we have to have patience. And I think also the administration here in America has to have patience and understand that it takes time.
Does that infrastructure for terrorism, does that have to be totally destroyed?
If we don't want them to, I mean, you know, my parents lived in Sderot. Sderot is a city next to Gaza, which for 20 years is being bombed from Gaza. 20 years. Rockets are being fired at this city time and time again, almost every single day. So if we don't want that to happen again, we have to make sure that all this infrastructure has been destroyed, for sure. That's the only way to do it.
You talked about the tunnels that are underneath and how this is used for terrorism. A lot of international pressure about the civilian casualties.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's not so clear-cut, because are they not using civilians, hospitals, schools as cover for their terrorist operation?
So, you know, first of all, about the term casualties, civilian casualties. I mean, you know, each home that you'll go through in Gaza, you will find that in their textbooks, how do they learn math? You know how? The question is, if I killed 3 Jews and you slaughtered 4 Jews, how many Jews did we slaughter altogether? Every home, almost every home, has pictures of babies holding rifles and Kalashnikov and pictures of dead Jews. They're holding books of Mein Kampf of Adolf Hitler. So saying, and again, we've seen the poll that was made in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza in the day after the October 7th atrocities, and 80% are supporting Hamas and supporting the massacres. So even the term is not correct. There are almost no civilians who are innocent in Gaza. This is part of their culture, and I know it's hard to realize it, but this is unfortunately the reality.
That culture has been facilitated in many ways by the United Nations and the Relief Works Agency.
Right. We discovered that UNRWA, which is, by the way, the only, I mean, there's a agency for refugees all over the world, and there's a special refugee organization just for the Palestinians,
right,
which exists for how many, I don't know how many years, and hasn't settled even one refugee in so many years. Which means the whole purpose of this organization is not to solve the problem for the Palestinians, it's to keep it as a problem in order to hurt Israel. That's the only purpose of it.
And this is what drives me crazy here in the United States, is that we are one of the largest funders, if not the largest funder, of UNRWA and the United Nations. And they're working against our very ally who we want to help and support.
And we've seen, I mean, in the tunnels, we are seeing packages of UNRWA. We're seeing UNRWA workers who were part of the massacre of October 7th.
Right.
It was all there. So your dollars basically goes to pay the salary of those people.
Ohad, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
Great to meet you.